what you need to know to survive. Our, oh, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. So tonight we're going to be taking some calls and some questions in the room about Elenin. And I'm wondering, I want to tell people too, if they haven't heard the previous episodes, that they should listen to it really, just so they have all the information that they can have. But also, if you have any questions at all, like if where you are, if that's safe, or what some of the evidence is, and we'll be happy to go ahead and take your call and answer it on the air for you live. And I was wondering if there's any new information out there that we've heard about in the last week.
Yes, we have a great danger of event happening around 7/7 of June 7th. That's the Saturn alignment. Well, we think that they're on to the Saturn alignment, that it is going to be a big sign or some kind of a sign, and it looks like that they're the elites that are controlling our corrupt government. It looks like that they're planning to stage an event around that, and the event includes, looks like the Reed Dam. And look, what they're doing is they're controlling the knobs on these dams. There's a series of them up there, and they've used their scalar technology, their HARP technology, and they have piled all that snow, the record snow that's melting now, and we got record rains, and so they're cresting with their dams. They're about a foot to a foot and a half away right now, and they're controlling the knobs rather than releasing the pressure. They are creating pressure on purpose, and all these dams are filling up at the same time, and there's expected to be another 5 feet of water coming out from the melt. Then there's no place for it to go, and so it looks like that they're planning on causing a cascade of all these dams, and they're going to spread all that water across Missouri and the Midwest to aid in the liquefaction process that's going to divide this country. So my people have been ready to deploy on August the 1st. That's our date of deployment to go to the Ozarks because of the solar threat. Because the solar storms in August are going to get bad. It's going to knock out people's vehicles. We're expecting the grid to go down in September, but it could happen in August.
So it'll be almost like an electromagnetic pulse?
That's right. That's because LA's getting closer to the sun, and it's also getting closer to the ecliptic plane of the sun, right next to the sun. So that's going to be September the 1st, but in order to give you a safety window, we've got to back it up, you see, because we've already had a big ejection, that one we had here in June, which I did not expect, by the way. So that's kind of spooking me a little bit. And that is what can stop us from getting there to the Ozarks. And so for somebody like me that has to drive a long ways, you see, I'm very mindful of what's going on here. So now we've got intel from other places. The elites of our society, they're being invited to join the elites that are in these bunkers. They're being systematically called, people that provide survival equipment. The elites are buying out their entire warehouses, and they're telling the people that own the warehouses, come and join us in the Ozarks, or come and join us under Denver, or come and join us in India, because that's what's happening. Now, what we've noticed with our intelligence is that their safety windows are about 3 weeks ahead of mine. Their safety windows are backing up to July the 7th. Mine back up to August the 1st, and I'm seeing that consistently. So it makes me believe that we're having that these people are planning to stage something around this 7/7. Okay, another report is that we have no-fly zones that are increasing around the 21st and 22nd. Well, the end of June here, we've got 32 of them now. There's no-fly areas that are being created by our government, and it looks like they're moving things or doing things that they don't want us to know about, and so they're limiting our ability to monitor what they're doing by creating these no-fly zones. So that's another tell that's telling us that they're orchestrating something, and it's all this is just prior to the 7/7 that they're getting ready for. So people that are survivalists that I've been telling to get ready for August the 1st, I think we need to back that window up to now July the 7th. And if this cascade affects, as soon as you see a dam go, then all my safety windows are closed and you need to deploy immediately.
Yeah, and I've heard that, what was it, yesterday, they were saying the last stop was this dam in Iowa, because the ones previous to it had failed. Now, if that one goes, is that really the last line of defense there for all this water?
Well, we have a lot of dams out that are in disrepair all over this country. If you're downwind of one of them, then you're in danger when Ellie gets here. Ellie's going to shake them all. So you cannot be downwind of a dam. If you think you're in a safe area in the west or the east, you're not in a safe zone. And then if you're below a dam, you're not in a safe zone. So for people that are preparing to survive what's about to happen, they need to be in the Ozarks, or they need to be at 1,000-foot elevation in a cavern anyway that is not downwind of a dam. So all those things are taken care of if you're following our threat assessment reports and you're using our threat assessment chart. Then that covers you. But so the main point is August 1st may no longer be any good. I haven't closed the windows yet, but if you see a dam break, it doesn't matter if it's Iowa, Reed Dam, it doesn't matter which dam it is in the Midwest. When you see one go, then that's a sign right there that you need to deploy, because it's going to cause a cascade effect, and you're going to see water everywhere, and it's going to wash the roads out. That's going to allow you to get to your safe zone.
Now, I understand that Elenin is there's some kind of problem with getting a clear kind of idea of what's going on because of the moon is kind of in the way or something. Is that right?
Yes. The window really closed for Elenin. Well, the optimum time to see the dwarf star, you can't actually see the star, but you can see what it does to the environment. So you can see the gravity well that's around it. You can see the photon vortices, and then you can see the orbitals that are coming out of it. The optimum time to see that object was May the 28th, the day before, the day after, because that's the day we reached outside orbit position. And we locked orbit in 1.8 AU starting April the 25th. And so through all this time, we've been about 1.8 AU, like two sailboats racing on the course. They're staying the same distance away from each other. So we've been locked in orbit. So now we've kind of broken orbit, but that was the perfect time to see it. And the reason is because Regulus was right there. That's one of the brightest stars that's out there. And we were able to use the light shining through the backside of that gravity well to visualize. Well, now, since we're in back orbit position, we're on the backside of the orbit. So when you reach outside orbit position, that divides your orbit. You're on the near side or the far side. Okay, so after we reach outside orbit position, now we're on the back side of that orbit. So what happens is it looks like Elenin is backing up in the sky now, when actually we are orbiting around the sun on the back side of the orbit. And so instead of moving left to right, now Elenin is moving right to left and going back across the sky. It's going to cross between 48 Leo and 49 Leo on June the 20th. It's moving away now from Regulus and away from 44 Leo. And it's still in that triangle of 44 Leo, 48 Leo, and 49 Leo until June the 20th. But now you don't have Regulus as a dominant star to be able to help you to visualize it. Plus, whenever the moon's out, then you have the light that's in the way. And so with this moon that we have, and so anyone that's going to rent time to see this thing should not do it until the moon is passed on by. And then we're going to be real late in the window to even see Elenin at all, because it's going to transition over into the daytime sky. So there's a small window here in July where that's possible, but in reality, I don't expect anyone to get us a good picture of it.
Okay, and you know, the other thing I heard is I was kind of curious about this because I didn't know if this was correct or not, but you know, there are a lot of people out there who say, well, no, it can't be a dwarf star, and they kind of tear down one reason, but you know, as you have in one of your videos, there are 25 signs, and I don't really see anyone tearing apart all 25 signs, but one thing someone said, and I just wanted to hear what your take on this was, because I'm not, an astronomer by any means, so I really don't know much about it. But one of the things is you were saying this is coming in at planetary speed, not the speed of a comet, which is apparently faster generally.
Yes.
And they were saying, well, the reason why it's so slow is because it has this really far orbit. And I don't really know what a general comet's orbit is, how far out they go. Do you think that stands to reason, or do you think that that's just simply disinformation?
It's just simply a lie. This thing has a long orbit. It continues to increase speed every moment of its existence until it reaches perigee position nearest the sun. In this case, it's September 11th. And then after it reaches that position, then it begins decreasing speed until it reaches apogee on the far side of 1,800 years. This thing has been increasing speed for all this time. It should be traveling much faster. From the time that it was 8 AU to 7 AU, the average speed was 32,500 miles an hour. The speed between June the 27th and August the 3rd is 62,500 miles an hour. So it basically doubled speed. And what it's doing is it's trying to match Earth's speed of about 67,000 miles an hour is what it's doing. Then after perigee, it's going to begin slowing down. And that's the time that it's nearest to us on October the 17th. And so during that period that it's between the sun and the Earth, it's actually slowing down as it's passing in front of us, which exaggerates the effect.
Yeah, but there's as you've said before, there's no possibility that we're going to, smack into it.
No. But the reason you know this is not a comet for sure is there's no outgassing, which the comet should be doing as it approaches the sun. It's not changing its mass like it should be. Because on 3/11/2011, the alignment there, it shifted Earth axis, it shifted Earth aquifers, and it gave us the Japan quake. Then on February 27, 2010, the same thing happened. The Earth aquifers around the world shifted, and the Earth axis shifted 3 inches, and this object was more than 6 AU away, more than 6 times the distance between the sun and the Earth away. And it's below the ecliptic plane, and it still caused that Earth's axis shift. Now that tells you this thing has great mass. It must have great mass. There's no other common denominator than the alignment with Elenin that caused those events. That tells you it has great mass. Nobody can argue that. And many people have tried to come in our research group and argue, but they have no other thesis to explain those two events on those days because they can't. I've tried to explain it to other means, and there's just no way. So then you have the problem of explaining the classification of this object. The classification of this object cannot possibly be a comet. The reason is because the mass required to move Earth's axis that way at such distance, the comet would be larger than Jupiter because it's made out of ice if it's a comet, right? And it has less density than water. And in order to get enough mass to do that, then it would have to be very, very large, and we would be able to see it from very, very far away. This object is only 1.8 AU in distance away from the Earth, and the astronomers are having very, very difficult time seeing it. That tells you that you're looking at a dwarf star-type object. Something is sitting inside of a deep gravity well. That's a V-shape, not a U-shaped gravity well. It's a V-shaped gravity well, and that's the reason that it doesn't affect objects at great distance, because of the V-shape. The V comes up and then levels off, and it's almost straight. It's almost a straight plane when it reaches a distance, so it doesn't affect objects that are very far away at a distance. The orbitals that are going around this object are on a tight orbit. They're a tight elliptical orbit, and so they're real near the star, and then they orbit outside on their wide side, but it's still very close. In other words, they just barely come out of the photon cloud, and then we can just barely see them, and then they go back inside. So that tells us that we have a high-density, high-mass object in there, but if it is a dwarf star, and it has half the mass of our sun, then it's only 50% larger than the Earth. So it's a very specialized little object that we have coming in here. And the people at NASA, nobody can explain the alignments and the fact that this is not a comet. They're not even trying to. There's so much disinformation out there, which you know. And the fact is that NASA cannot come on your show and explain those alignments other than Elenin. And Elenin must be a high-density object.
Yeah, and I do want to remind everyone, because on previous shows we didn't take calls, but today we are taking calls. And I also have a chat room open. So if you want to call, my call-in number is 760-683-2624. Go ahead, give us a call. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. Maybe you have a question about survivalism. Maybe you have a question about Elenin. I'd like to hear it. I know Terrell would too. So go ahead and give us a call if you want. And in the meantime, I also wanted to ask, we've talked about this before, but, there are these orbitals around this dwarf. And has anyone plotted out their trajectories as this thing is coming in? I mean, has anyone taken it that far? Because it will be like, what is it, 0.233 away from Earth, or fairly close. How far away are the orbitals from this object? Is it possible that one of the orbitals will hit us or our moon?
I don't believe so. The V-shape and the tight orbit, they're barely orbiting out of the cloud and then going back inside. The minimum distance is 0.232 AU on October the 17th, and that's about 21.56 in that area, million miles. And so the chances of being hit by one of these objects, because we have so much empty space out there, the chances of being hit are very, very, very small.
Okay, and another thing, I keep coming across this. I don't know how plausible it is, but I keep coming across this idea that either maybe the brown dwarf itself or one of its orbitals is somehow life-sustaining, or it's piloted. What and I keep seeing this, and I don't even know what to make of it or why it keeps coming up. Can you explain where this is coming from and what your take on it is?
Yeah, the correct term, I shouldn't have said piloted. I did that on a past show. I should have said controlled. And that's a part of the Russian warning that came out on March the 1st, 2011. And there's a reason for that. Now, the reason is because let's imagine that we have a spaceship out in orbit around the Earth, and we want to bring it in say, Florida. Well, there's a window that spaceship must fly through in order to make that landing. Okay, if the spaceship misses that window, it must go around again and come through it, or go to a different window and land somewhere else. So that window concept needs to be in your mind. And the Russians are very aware of that, people that understand, about spacecraft. Okay, so what we have is from the very beginning, ever since I've been running this JPL program, is we have a window behind our sun at this perigee position that this object has been traveling toward. And it's flying through a window that's on 9/11. And the reason it's flying through that window on 9/11 is because about 2 weeks later on 9/26, it's going to be directly between the Earth and the sun, directly on the celestial plane. And that's what's going to cause the pole shift, is because this dwarf star is going to pass directly between the Earth and the sun, directly between the gravity trough, connecting those two gravity wells together, and it's going to break the magnetic portals that connect the Earth and the sun together, while at the same time, this star connected its magnetic portals to us in 2004. So we're getting a double juice of magnetism now through this two sets of magnetic portals. But after September the 26th, there's just going to be one set, and it's going to be coming from this star.
Okay, well, I do have a call, so I'm going to bring them on. Hello, you're on the air with Nixie LaRue and Terrell. Who's this?
For me?
Yeah, hi. Where are you from? What's your name?
How's it going? I'm Jeff. And again, I want to commend Terrell on his research and all the everything he's doing to help us all, and all that. So, hey, get to the point is I live in Conway, Arkansas, and I've already stated that earlier with Terrell. Sorry, getting kind of in a frog in the throat there. But to cut through the chase, what it is, I received a phone call about 2 months ago from my brother, Tim, which is ex-military, and he held quite a huge position there in the Pacific Fleet, and he went to work with NASA. He had told me, asked how's things going and stuff like that, and that he had mentioned that he just had something to share with me because basically he's got to get going. And what it was he said basically something big is about to happen that he had found out with NASA today. Jeff, you probably need to. I'm Jeff, and I need to consider moving as soon as possible. So I took it for granted, and luckily I'm already here in Arkansas, and I'm going to be able to mobilize quite easily. I do find all this information that is being revealed through this planet, what we call the brown dwarf, or the Planet X, or Alanin, or whatever you want to call it. It is true, and to get that little tweet, whatever you want to call it, from my brother Tim, is something to take heed of. So I just wanted to share that with folks. And if I find out any other information, I will be gladly to call or whatever and spill the beans. And hopefully I don't have people knocking on my door. So that's all I got to share. And thank you so much. And I'm ready to rock and roll with y'all.
If you would, let me give you a little analysis for Conway. Nixie, if that's okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine. It's actually, I'm on top of a mountain. It's called Petty Jean Mountain. We have a resort up here, and it's about 750 elevation, but it's fairly small.
Okay. Do you have a cavern location there where you can hide from Ellie?
Yeah, we got, like I said, I've been up here for at least 10 years, and we have caves, we have waterfalls, we have our own water resource. A nice little lake and the whole 9 yards, and I don't think the water is going to be a problem, anyways. But yeah, all that. But the question I got is, it's actually if it all does occur, and I'm sure it's gonna, I'm going to be surrounded by water, and it's going to be like a little island.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And now you're in Arkansas now. Is that where you were when he told you this, or did he tell you where you should go to? Well,
fortunately, my wife is from Arkansas, so we moved here.
Okay.
So I was here in Arkansas before I found out any of this information. But my brother did tell me I need to move and consider moving to Michigan.
Really?
And I was like, well, rock and roll. I'm cool down here because I was also able to obtain a map that showed the flood zone, I'm going to call it, where my backyard is going to be the ocean, part of the ocean anyways, or the river. So, but I have a couple different, I have a house down in Conway, Arkansas, and Petty Jean Mountain is about 30 miles, I would say, southwest. We have a resort up there, and a nice little place to go for camping and stuff like that. But that's, I'm not one for talking. I just thought I'd call in and share all this information with you. And I do have all my supplies that I need. And if anybody wants to, it's limited. It's limited up here on top of the mountain. It's approximately 3, 4, 5 miles around at the 750 elevation mark. So, when it's all said and done, I believe this is going to end up looking like Mackinac Island in Michigan.
Sure. Well, thanks.
That's all I got to share.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Well, thank you, guys. Thanks, Terrell.
Yes, sir.
See, now that's really interesting because I've always heard that Michigan is unsafe. Now we don't know if Jeff's brother likes him or not, right? But I'm sure he does. So do you think that maybe they're, if they're telling people they should go to Michigan, do you think that's maybe they just have wrong information or they're not plotting it out right?
I'm not sure because I wouldn't be sending people up there. You have 9 nuclear power plants at the north end of that New Madrid fault zone up there, and whenever they start going, then you're going to be downwind of that, and you do not want to be up there around all that water. When the pole shift happens, you're going to have the water jumping over you, New York, because there's insufficient elevation there.
Sure.
And it's going to dump over into those Great Lakes and turn them into salt. You're not going to want to be up there. The entire eastern coast is not safe. The entire west coast is not safe. The central part of the United States is safe. So actually where Jeff is the safest part of the country, actually, because it's south far enough so that you're downwind of the Texas, prairie out there in the desert, and it's the high ground. The thing that I would say to Jeff, though, is if you think that you're going to survive this by yourself in your little hole there, it's not going to work that way. The reason is because we're also looking at a society collapse that's going to happen here. There's going to be people unprepared, and they're going to be running around in hordes, and they're going to be coming to get your stuff and your food and things like that. So you really need to join up in a large group. Imagine that it's gang warfare, and you want to be in the largest gang. Because if you're in a small group, the big group comes along, they're going to kill the men, they're going to take the women and children to make their group better, make them stronger. Whenever pardon my language, the crap hits the fan, that's what happens. So you need to join together. You need to have the perfect cavern location, but you still have to put together a big, giant survival group. So you become a hard target. Then another set of threats is the Blackwater-type mercenaries that work for Cheney and Rumsfeld and the elites. What happens whenever they come and they want to put you in a FEMA camp? So you need to have a big, hard target presence in order to protect yourself from all these things. So there are many, many more threats than just Ellie coming that we need to be concerned about whenever we're doing our threat assessment and we're creating our contingency plans.
And also I wanted to let people know who are interested in going out to the Ozarks that you do have a website. It's www.planetxtownhall.com. That's right? Is that correct?
Yes, that's Marshall Masters' site. I was on his panel there, on his research group, and then they fired me. So now I'm not a member there anymore, but my work is still posted there, and I use that link. The reason is because of my words to Mensher Amarbasic, who I've been talking to since he came out with his paper on April the 11th.
Sure.
And now his tone, his presentation of his paper is totally different. He's turned all the way around. Now Ellen is a harmless little thing coming in. There's nothing to worry about. So he's part of the disinformation program, and I called him out on it. And Marshall Masters and the 2012, the fake movement there, are not happy with me, so they banned me from their website.
Yeah, it would be strange that he would, do a complete turnaround on his paper, because that was, I read some of it. It seemed, in his, what his theory was, he seemed pretty solid about it.
He is. But remember, it's a georesonator, hyperresonator concept paper. It's a thesis paper, and it includes the seismicity on the alignments. And the reason it was written before Ellenin, but then he added Ellenin because of the pattern of seismicity. So when this guy came out with his paper, he had no idea what he was stepping into, that Ellenin was going to be blacklisted as a topic. He didn't know that, and so the government was harassing him. But then Marshall Masters, who was the kingpin of the fake 2012 movement, took him under his arm, did a little show with him, which I was supposed to be part of, and they left me out. And then now he's part of the disinformation program. And so it's not surprising at all that he's telling people lies in order to make them think everything's okay. Because whenever they run into their underground bunker, see, now he's got a nice plush place in the underground bunker that's secure for himself and his family, while the rest of us are outside fending for ourselves. So it's no mystery at all. It's part of the disinformation program. That's the reason you're having a difficult time getting news about Comet Ellenin being a dwarf star with a 9/11 perigee that's going to make a pole shift on 9/26, because those are the keywords that these people are not allowed to discuss. It's the reason George Norrie will not have me on Coast to Coast, is because the topic and the keywords that I'm using are blacklisted, and if he does, that he won't have his place in the underground bunker either.
And I listen to George Norrie, occasionally, I'm not up that late most of the time, but occasionally I do, and he seems like a fair-minded guy. So you've contacted him to be on, and they just aren't doing shows on it, or is that what they said? They're not?
Well, right now they're running a series of disinformation shows on it. He was asked by longtime members over there to have me on. They ran a little investigation on me and saw what I'm saying, and they said, because of the subject matter, they could not have me on their show. They will have an opening in 2012. That's what they said.
That's funny. But, and I know that Richard Holbein goes on that show quite a bit. And isn't he kind of saying the same type of thing? Is he not going on the show lately, or?
Well, you got Lucas, you got John Moore, you got Dr. Rand, and all these people that talk all around the subject as if this is going to happen sometime, but they're not telling you when. They're not getting you ready and prepared to deploy on August the 1st because this thing is coming now. They're getting you ready for 2012. They're going to run into their underground bunkers, and you're going to be dead. That's the game they're playing. It's disinformation. They're working for the intelligence community. They're all working under Robert Gates, the defense secretary, because they all married together after 9/11 because they're telling the same lies about 9/11, and now this is their counterintelligence anti-terror program that's in the works. This is the control of the information so that you stay asleep about Elenin, dwarf star, 2011.
And yeah, here's something interesting I also ran across, and I'm wondering if you've heard about this. A lot of the there's a lot of hubbub about 2012 in particular, and I saw just the other day that there are some folks out there that are saying no. When we initially calculated this date, this December 21st, 2012 date, the initial calculation was wrong because, of course, they measured like octons and cotons, and there's these wheels with gears. It's you know, it's not exactly similar to our method. So you can see, all right, yeah, maybe there was an error, but they're saying, and the interesting thing is to back them up too, is they show some clips of some of the old, you remember the old In Search Of TV show
Right.
with Leonard Nimoy, and in that show, it mentions 2011, and they're saying that with the new calculation, it's October 30th, 2011, which would be right as this thing is passing through our line of orbit, right?
Yeah, I believe the date is October the 28th, actually.
Oh, okay.
And so the October the 17th is our near miss, and November the 22nd is our alignment. So it happens between the nearest encounter and our third alignment, which just happens to be the day that Rothschild killed John F. Kennedy, by the way.
And that's interesting coincidence. And really, I don't believe in coincidence, but I do want to say too that that do you think then, in your opinion, do you think that this whole 2012 thing is mainly disinformation, since the date may be wrong according to some folks now?
Absolutely. The intelligence community latched onto this. They've known about this object since obviously before they killed John F. Kennedy. They've known about this object for a very long time. And the 2012 movement, the entire thing, is a hoax. It's a program in order to keep you asleep. It's a pill that they've given you to keep you asleep, to keep you from waking up to the fact that you're living in one of those extinction-level event movies. And their job is to keep you asleep about it. And people like myself, we're out there trying to wake you up. And so we're counter to what they're doing. Elenin is coming with perigee 9/11 this year. Everybody needs to be getting ready for it right now. And they've got you getting ready for next year so that nobody's ready. Then they all run into their bunkers here about July the 7th, I think is the time that they're going to start heading for their bunkers, and everybody else can fend for themselves.
And I think that, there might be something to that perhaps there was a miscalculation because, maybe the Mayan, they were pretty good with astrology. I mean, granted, their folklore and everything was a little bit loopy, and I did do a show on 2012, and I looked into some of that. So, they weren't right on everything, but they were really, really accurate with their astronomy. So maybe they were aware that there was, some kind of planet that came through, and they calculated when it was going to come by again.
Well, actually, it doesn't work that way. People are saying that this object comes in every 3,600 years, but that is not the truth. The truth is that this object is perturbed by the sun and by the Earth and by Jupiter and everything else when it comes through, so that its orbit actually changes.
Oh.
It doesn't come. That's right. It doesn't come in on a regular time period like that. It can come in the next time it comes in, it can come in 3,600 years, or it can come in 2,000 years, or it can come in 40,000 years. Depends on how it's perturbed by the Earth, for example. The Earth is going to alter its orbit because we come so close to it. And the minutest, smallest little change, or the gravitational effect of another planet, can affect it greatly as it leaves the sun. Because remember, it's slowing down as it's leaving the sun. It's being affected by Earth. It's going to cross between the sun and Jupiter, and then on the way out, then it's going to meet up with something else, and then that orbit must be readjusted. So the orbit diagram is not true of what we're looking at right now. It's showing what would happen with no effect, but whenever this object leaves, if it didn't terraform the planet, actually, then they would have to recalculate and tell us how long the orbit would be, and it would likely not be 3,600 years. So this object could come again in 1,000 years or 2,000 years or 3,600 years.
And another thing I want to talk to you about, and maybe there's some people out there who have some opinions on this too, and our number here is 760-683-2624. But, I'm wondering, they sent that space shuttle up Endeavour, and I think they have plans to launch another one pretty shortly. I know that I understand that the space shuttle missions are, classified, so, it would be hard to really say what they might be doing. But I know that they brought some kind of a electromagnetic thing up there, and they say they're looking for anti-helium, which is the opposite of helium. What do you think they're doing up there? I mean, I was really intrigued that they got a call from the Pope. I mean, it's never happened before, and I watched the conversation, and he's wishing them good luck, and mankind depends on them, and of course he would say that anyways, right? But I'm wondering to myself, is there something, more meaningful going on here that we're not aware of? What do you think about all this?
Well, it's very difficult to speculate on what's going on with these people. I mean, they're hiding the truth from and murdering. These people are participating in genocide. And then you want me to crawl inside their mind and answer, why they're doing this. Mm-hmm. This big magnet that they're putting up there, it's people have speculated as to it's an alpha magnetic spectrometer, and they speculate on what it's going to do and things like that. And I really believe that's all just a deception to make it look like that NASA's continuing on. Whenever NASA just came out with this report telling their employees and their workers to prepare for the unknown, for the unexpected, for unforeseen catastrophes. Mm-hmm. And so the people that I know have friends from NASA, a married couple, and they showed up at their house with a year's worth of food, and they're heading for the hills at the same time that they're sending up this magnet. And so we know this magnet is not to repel anything. It doesn't work that way. The magnet has to be held by something. If it was a dwarf star, they aimed it at it, it would have no effect whatsoever, right, except for to push the spaceship backwards. It's not like you're going to move anything with it. And so to me, it looks like it's just a big ploy. The solar storms that are about to come are about to knock all this stuff out anyway. Mm-hmm. So the CMEs that are getting ready to come out of the sun, it's going to knock down the satellites, it's going to knock down the power grid, the communications grid. Even things that are hardened up there for the electronics, those things are likely going to go down too because of repeated assaults by the sun about what's about to happen. And so any speculation on what they're doing up there, I really think is meaningless to the Elenin.
Yeah, well, I thought it was really strange too, that video that that you just remarked about the NASA preparedness video, and and like I said before, it's good to be prepared in any situation. You never know what's going to happen, and you never know how long you're going to be stranded. So it's good to have a certain amount of food and everything on hand. But I thought it was strange that they're saying you need to prepare. I mean, terrorism, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like thinking to myself, isn't this like out of your realm? Shouldn't FEMA be doing this public service announcement? It was a little odd to me. And now you're saying that some of these folks that work for NASA are actually packing up and leaving. Is that verified?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, it's from a friend of a friend news, but we're getting all kinds of stuff like that. The story that I told you that came from one of our group members. He went to buy sleeping bags, and he had to return. They sent him the wrong one, so he went to return them. And come to find out, his whole inventory is bought out, and he's been invited to go and join the elite in their bunker, and he didn't know why. And so we've got the information on why, and so our members started explaining it to him, and then he's like having a eureka moment here. He's suddenly realizing what's going on. He was totally unaware, there was a dwarf star coming or anything like that, but he was invited to the underground bunker because of something that was going to happen, but they didn't even tell him why he was being invited there. So you're seeing that going on all over the country and all over the world. As people are being called from their positions to join the elite in their bunkers. That's people that they believe are going to be needed in their New World Order, that are not already included in their little membership club. Sure. People from industry that are totally oblivious to what's happening. They're being chosen and called out, and their entire inventories in their warehouses bought because they have underground cities all around the world, and so they're taking all their survival stuff and taking it, bringing it, and put it in their underground bunker, and inviting the owners' families to come and join them.
And how many people do you think? I mean, I understand it's probably obviously not most of us, but they have little cities. How many people are they planning on bringing down there?
Well, the numbers vary. It depends on who you believe. They're probably not accurate, but 7 million for the United States, 24 million for Russia, 2.5 million for Norway, and that's the numbers that they give out to you. But who knows if they're true? But the countries that are awake and have the resources, they've been building these underground bunkers for some time. If you listen to the testimony of the Norwegian politician from Project Camelot, mm-hmm. then he says that their ark program, which that's what they're calling it, their ARC underground cities, they had to be completed by 2011.
Oh, wow.
Not 2012.
And yeah, you know, it seems to me, I was watching recently a special on some of these underground bunkers that they have for, you know, Congress and things. And what I found interesting, you know, at least what they said on this show, I don't know, you know, how accurate it is, but they were saying, you know, they have these bunk beds, you know, it looks very, you know, military, like you'd see at boot camp. And they said that in the event of some kind of attack or something, they would shuttle all of Congress to this location underground. They would have their assigned cot, and they wouldn't even be able to bring their family. But yet, later in the show, they showed these gigantic boats. I mean, and I kept thinking, what are the boats for? I mean, it was really strange to me why they would have those.
I didn't actually see that.
Well, it was a, you know, just one of these specials they have, probably on the History Channel. They seem to do a lot of that type of thing. But yeah, and they had they showed some of the underground facilities, and they said we have water, and this is how we're, you know, bringing the air in, and it didn't really look like, you know, spectacular quarters. However, I will say that I know there is some kind of underground city underneath the Denver airport.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a very large city. They have the symbolism of the 2012, the end of the world, all throughout the airport as like the theme. And then they've got their underground city, which is they've been working on for a very, very long time. That's constructed underneath that airport, out in the middle of nowhere, far away from everybody.
Yeah, and you wonder, you know, why do they have that? And the thing that I always thought was bizarre, and for those of you who haven't seen this, I really urge you to look it up. At the Denver airport, they have these murals, and you know, I believe in freedom of expression, et cetera, et cetera. You know, there's a time and a place for things, of course, and you know, common sense will tell you, you know, maybe if your art, you know, looks a particular way, the best place for it might not be, an elementary school, you know, things like this. So in the Denver airport, they had these murals, and they had like kids in coffins, and I'm not kidding, and you know, really, really dark stuff, mothers crying, holding dead babies. It was disturbing, and you know, it's like, hi, welcome to Denver, look at our murals, right? I mean, you know, who would want to look at that, number one? I mean, it was pretty astounding, but I do think there's something strange going on there at Denver, and I don't know what it is. I don't know why they would put those murals up. But I think that's like, isn't that, have you heard this, that this is like a temporary setup for a new United States Capitol?
I really haven't done that much research into that area. I actually believe that the Rocky Mountain Ridge is going to break in a different location than they think. And I actually think that entire complex is going to go into that caldera that's out there. The Yellowstone caldera, whenever it erupts,
sure,
the Rocky Mountain Ridge along there is going to break. And I believe that it's going to, that airport, that whole facility is going to go right down to the bottom of that caldera.
Wow. Wow, yeah, that would be a surprise for them, I guess, you know, I've heard that it's going to be some kind of a new capital, and I always wondered, why are they going to move it to Denver? I mean, I understand, like, being out on the coast is maybe, you know, maybe you want your nation's capital to be more centrally located, you know, just for safety reasons, et cetera. But if they think it's going to be underwater, well, you know, there's a real good reason, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
And you know, so I'm not sure about you know, what the facilities are like down there, but I guess they're pretty big. And you're saying that some people are already leaving.
Their safety windows are July the 7th. That seems to be a common theme from people that we're getting intel from. About the first week in July, you're going to see a lot of people starting to disappear. And we are very watchful because that's the Saturn alignment, you see. And we expect that, like I said earlier, that event, there's going to be a staged event, and it's going to be like a dam breaking or something that's going to start a cascade effect in the Midwest that's going to cause the worst catastrophe of our country's history.
And, well, yeah, I'm sure it would. And so basically what we're looking for is something that's probably going to happen right on or right before or probably right after July 7th. And do you think that we're going to see some signs from Saturn because of this alignment as well?
Yes. It's not as dramatic as it could be because Ellie is still in the southern hemisphere, getting nearer the ecliptic plane every day, but Saturn is high above the plane. So those magnetic portals are stretched across there, and it's going to depend. Now, Ellie is about the size of the Earth. It's high density, and it is causing disruption of a large area of space. So what I'm thinking is that the top end of that gravity well is actually going to cut across those magnetic portals, and it's going to cause the Saturn to give us a sign. And so it's either going to tip backwards, which is what I expect, or it's going to give us some kind of a sign so that we know that Ellie's coming.
And there's also going to be, and I've forgotten the date of this, but we're also kind of expecting an eclipse of Mars. Isn't that right?
That came from Astral Patriot, and I don't see any way possible that there's going to be eclipse with Mars.
Okay.
I believe that was on. He said August the 13th, and I've looked at it from every angle. I've been asked this question before, and I could not tell you. There is an eclipse, but that's on 9/26 when this star is directly between the Earth and the Sun. There's going to be eclipse because with us, there's going to be eclipse of the Sun on that day, and actually on the 27th also is the day of the new moon. So the moon is going to be between the Earth and the Sun, and the star is going to be between the Earth and the Sun at just about the same time on 9/26, and that's going to cause an eclipse. But the Earth's going to tip backwards, and those of us in the northern hemisphere will not be able to witness it.
All right, and I do have another call here, so I want to bring them on. We don't have a whole lot of time, but let's see what we can get into here. Hello. Hello, you're on the air with Nixie LaRue and Terrell. Where are you from, and what's your name?
Ray in Ohio.
Fantastic. And do you have a question or a comment?
Well, I just came into the radio show. I just got to the tail end of it. But I wanted to ask Terrell to kind of parse over a little bit of information that was released by NASA on June 10th of last week. It was a video, a family preparedness video prepared for all NASA employees by Administrator Bolden. And I would very just kind of interested to hear what Terrell has to say about it. I mean, it's getting a lot of attention for various reasons, but some of the other reasons that may be missed may be, some of the symbolism that's on the page that the video is actually released with.
Oh, yeah, and I'm gonna have you listen off here, but thanks a lot for your question. And yeah, there was something strange. At the top of that page, it looks like there's a brown dwarf in the corner on the top of NASA's page. It was really strange.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to go to my YouTube channel at Terrell03 and look at the threat assessment, ELE threat assessment video, because I begin with this NASA headquarters emergency operations, and I point to each of those objects and tell you what it is for you, and then give a little rundown on what they're doing. So the first object there, it appears to be our disturbed area of space and the little Ellen object that they're tracking, which is one of the orbitals actually. And then the next little object up there in their header, it appears to be a little mini solar system, which is what this is. It's a little mini solar system that's coming in. And then the third object appears to be the disturbed area of space itself, which is the gravity well and the photon vortices that are on the outside. It's colored in red, white, and blue, and the orbitals just happen to be the same color as red, white, and blue. So you have what looks like a black hole with a halo around it, and that's exactly what our astronomers see whenever they have the perfect conditions. And so it's a perfect little play of what's happening for people that are awake, and it's not very much to people that are still asleep.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up. I always forget about that, and I always want to mention it. I do have another call. Again, not much time, but I do want to try and take some calls here. Hello, you're on the air with Nixie LaRue and Terrell.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Do you have a question for us tonight? What's your name and where are you from?
My name's Belikowski. I'm from Edmonton.
All right, fantastic. And do you have a question for Terrell?
I was basically curious as to why comet Elenin would be playing such an important part when we have a planet right in front of our eyes, Jupiter, that's increased in 2 light magnitudes within 5 years. And there is a reason why all of the planets in our system are showing such great anomalies. And I'm just wondering why all of this other stuff's coming out when there's no justification for the very anomalies in front of our eyes. What is with this whole Nibiru program? I'm just curious as to why it's still going on. It was supposed to be visible by eye already, visible by telescope in 2009. These dates have all passed. So basically the galactic plane that we're about to pass, which I call the Great Windsurf's Machine in the Sky, seems to be what they're covering up most of the time with these operations of what I call the Cry Wolf when it comes to the events coming. We just had a camping event. Now we've got Comet Elenin. We had Nibiru in the past. And again, when these things come to pass, are we not going to notice that we have a massive gas giant in our system that's 2 light magnitudes different than it's supposed to be, and nobody's saying a word? Why is this not being talked about, if you don't mind if I ask that question?
That's a fantastic question. I'm going to let you listen off air, but thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. I'm glad that he asked that. Was there something you wanted to say, Nixie?
Oh, no, I just hadn't heard that before. I'm really curious. We don't have a lot of time. We got about 5 minutes, but I sure would like to hear what you have to say about it.
Okay. Remember, we're dealing with a star that's coming in. And this star connected its magnetic portals to our Earth in 2004. That's the reason we have increased seismicity, volcanism, and all this other stuff. That's the reason that Saturn has a superstorm and an extra ring. Uranus became super active. That's part of the Mincher-Ambabach's paper. So it's affecting our planets because this star is trying to include our planets in its mini solar system. And it's doing it by attaching these magnetic portals and injecting the extra magnetism into these other planets, which is the reason that all the planets in our solar system are heating up at the same time. So what he's talking about is Jupiter's being affected by this star, which it is, and it's growing in seismicity just like Saturn and just like our planet because it's being affected. Now, this star does not have its own source of magnetism. It gets it from the sun. And as it gets closer to the sun, those magnetic portals shrink in length and they grow in diameter. And so it's able to siphon off more magnetism as it gets closer to the sun. That's why our Earth right now is belching more magma out of 33 volcanoes all at the same time, and that number is going to continue to grow, by the way. So Jupiter's being affected, Saturn's being affected, all the planets are being affected in the same way. The reason that NASA's not talking about it is because they're liars. They have one foot in the bunker. They're not telling us that it's a dwarf star coming, and they're trying to pretend that nothing's happening whenever, you know, we have all these signs on the Earth. The dead animals are dying by the billions because of the magnetism of this dwarf star. So when you have two stars competing for one planet with dual set of magnetic portals, then this is what happens. The magnetic lines that these animals follow that have magnetite in their tissues, they're all messed up, and they're going left and right and up and down. And whenever they run out of food, nature tells them to go in a particular direction, and they follow those magnetic lines to their next source of food. But if those magnetic lines are bent and they're turned around the other direction, you see, they go off way in the wrong direction, and they run out. They end up starving to death. And then the animal waiting on them to show up to their normal food supply, they starve to death because their food source didn't show up, and you have ecological implosions going on all over the planet, and that's going to get worse and worse as the star gets closer and closer.
Sure, it's like a big chain reaction. And you know, I'm wondering what's going to happen, too, July 7th, when we look around and say, hey, you know, where did some of these people go?
Like Oprah. Like Oprah, she stopped her show. A lot of people are doing that right now. They're getting ready for the New World Order. These are the citizens of the New World Order going into their underground bunkers, and when they come out, they think that you're not going to be here and that they're going to go into the New World Order and they're going to be the superstars.
Yeah, and you know, I'm just wondering what we can expect. You know, and July is coming up pretty quick.
Time is running out. We have a severe food shortage in the United States that's being covered up also. Look at the Midwest of how it's been flooded. That's going to wash away topsoil, so you're not going to be able to plant next year. It's going to take a long time to replace all that topsoil. Not only is that, the crops are being washed away. So the food shortage that was created in a lot of different ways, through the money, through the Rothschild killing the dollar, and all that stuff, there's a lot of bad things that are working together against the people of this country and their ability to feed themselves. They're no longer going to be able to feed themselves. All that is imploding. So while your listeners are awake, they need to go down to the Sam's Club and they need to get cases and cases and cases of food, as much food as they can store. And because of this extinction level event, they need to put that into their travel trailer and in their trailers and in the back of their vehicles and get to a safe location where you can join a survival group with sufficient numbers that represent the cross-section of your society with doctors, military people, teachers, and the like. That's the kind of group we're putting together in the Ozarks. And that's really, really what you need to do to survive this, because there are so many threats. We could spend another 2 hours here, and I could not list them all for you.
Yeah, and you know, I hate to say it, but time is running out for the show, too. You know, we always seem to run out of time, even though there's so much to talk about. And I really appreciate you coming on and taking some calls, and some really good points were brought up, you know, like the picture on the NASA website, and also what's going on with Jupiter. And, of course, that's something I'm going to start investigating right away, because I kind of want to know these things. But I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm going to have you hang on the line while we do the outro for the show. One thing I want to ask really quickly, how much food should people stock up on? For how long, would you say?
Well, you need to be prepare yourself and your family with 1 year's worth of food for each person. The reason is, and you have to have survival seeds, because when you come out of your cavern, you're not going to recognize the planet anymore. Everything that's there is going to be living in seed form under the ground and in cocoons and things, and it's going to have to come back to life. And so you're going to have to replant the food, and you're going to have enough food with you in order to survive that growing period.
Well, you know, yeah, and you should have some amount of food on hand always, because you never know what's going to happen. But maybe a good idea, next few months to go ahead and stock up a little bit more than you normally would, especially if you start seeing some of these signs come to pass. July 7th, problems with Saturn,
Volcanoes.
earthquakes, things like that, because like you said before, by the time you see it in the sky, it's going to be too late.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you, everyone, for listening. What you need to know to survive. Oh, I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. So tonight we're going to be taking some calls and some questions in the room about Elenin. And I'm wondering, I want to tell people, too, if they haven't heard the previous episodes, that they should listen to it, really, just so they have all the information that they can have. But also, if you have any questions at all, like if where you are, if that's safe, or what some of the evidence is, and we'll be happy to go ahead and take your call and answer it on the air for you live. And I was wondering if there's any new information out there that we've heard about in the last week.
Yes, we have a great danger of event happening around 7/7 of June 7th. That's the Saturn alignment. Well, we think that they're on to the Saturn alignment, that it is going to be a big sign or some kind of a sign, and it looks like that they're the elites that are controlling our corrupt government. It looks like that they're planning to stage an event around that, and the event includes, looks like the Reed Dam. And what they're doing is they're controlling the knobs on these dams. There's a series of them up there, and they've used their scalar technology, their HARP technology, and they have piled all that snow, the record snow that's melting now, and we got record rains, and so they're cresting with their dams. They're about a foot to a foot and a half away right now, and they're controlling the knobs. Rather than releasing the pressure, they are creating pressure on purpose. And all these dams are filling up at the same time, and there's expected to be another 5 feet of water coming out from the melt, and there's no place for it to go. And so it looks like that they're planning on causing a cascade of all these dams, and they're going to spread all that water across Missouri and the Midwest to aid in the liquefaction process that's going to divide this country. So my people have been ready to deploy on August the 1st. That's our date of deployment to go to the Ozarks because of the solar threat. Because the solar storms in August are going to get bad. It's going to knock out people's vehicles. We're expecting the grid to go down in September, but it could happen in August.
So it'll be almost like an electromagnetic pulse?
That's right. That's because LA's getting closer to the sun, and it's also getting closer to the ecliptic plane of the sun, right next to the sun. So that's going to be September the 1st, but in order to give you a safety window, we've got to back it up, you see, because we've already had a big ejection, that one we had here in June, which I did not expect, by the way. So that's kind of spooking me a little bit. And that is what can stop us from getting there to the Ozarks. And for somebody like me that has to drive a long ways, you see, I'm very mindful of what's going on here. So now we've got intel from other places. The elites of our society, they're being invited to join the elites that are in these bunkers. They're being systematically called, people that provide survival equipment. The elites are buying out their entire warehouses. And they're telling the people that own the warehouses, come and join us in the Ozarks, or come and join us under Denver, or come and join us in India, because that's what's happening. Now, what we've noticed with our intelligence is that their safety windows are about 3 weeks ahead of mine. Their safety windows are backing up to July the 7th, mine back up to August the 1st. And I'm seeing that consistently, so it makes me believe that we're having that these people are planning to stage something around the 7/7. Okay, another report is that we have no-fly zones that are increasing around the 21st and 22nd. Well, the end of June here, we've got 32 of them now. There's no-fly areas that are being created by our government. And it looks like they're moving things or doing things that they don't want us to know about. And so they're limiting our ability to monitor what they're doing by creating these no-fly zones. So that's another tell that's telling us that they're orchestrating something, and it's all this is just prior to the 7/7 that they're getting ready for. So people that are survivalists that I've been telling to get ready for August the 1st, I think we need to back that window up to now July the 7th. And if this cascade affects, as soon as you see a dam go, then all my safety windows are closed and you need to deploy immediately.
Yeah, and I've heard that, what was it, yesterday, they were saying the last stop was this dam in Iowa, because the previous to it had failed. Now, if that one goes, is that really the last line of defense there for all this water?
Well, we have a lot of dams out that are in disrepair all over this country. If you're downwind of one of them, then you're in danger. When Ellie gets here, Ellie's going to shake them all. So you cannot be downwind of a dam. If you think you're in a safe area in the west or the east, you're not in a safe zone. And then if you're below a dam, you're not in a safe zone. So for people that are preparing to survive what's about to happen, they need to be in the Ozarks, or they need to be at 1,000-foot elevation in a cavern anyway that is not downwind of a dam. So all those things are taken care of if you're following our threat assessment reports and you're using our threat assessment chart. Then that covers you. But so the main point is August 1st may no longer be any good. I haven't closed the windows yet, but if you see a dam break, it doesn't matter if it's Iowa, Reed Dam, it doesn't matter which dam it is in the Midwest. When you see one go, then that's a sign right there that you need to deploy, because it's going to cause a cascade effect, and you're going to see water everywhere, and it's going to wash the roads out. That's going to allow you to get to your safe zone.
Now, I understand that Elenin is there's some kind of problem with getting a clear kind of idea of what's going on because of the moon is kind of in the way or something. Is that right?
Yes. The window really closed for Elenin. Well, the optimum time to see the dwarf star, you can't actually see the star, but you can see what it does to the environment. So you can see the gravity well that's around it. You can see the photon vortices, and then you can see the orbitals that are coming out of it. The optimum time to see that object was May the 28th, the day before, the day after, because that's the day we reached outside orbit position. And we locked orbit in 1.8 AU starting April the 25th. And so through all this time, we've been about 1.8 AU, like two sailboats racing on the course. They're staying the same distance away from each other. So we've been locked in orbit. So now we've kind of broken orbit, but that was the perfect time to see it. And the reason is because Regulus was right there. That's one of the brightest stars that's out there. And we were able to use the light shining through the backside of that gravity well to visualize. Well, now, since we're in back orbit position, we're on the backside of the orbit. So when you reach outside orbit position, that divides your orbit. You're on the near side or the far side. Okay, so after we reach outside orbit position, now we're on the back side of that orbit. So what happens is it looks like Elenin is backing up in the sky now, when actually we are orbiting around the sun on the back side of the orbit. And so instead of moving left to right, now Elenin is moving right to left and going back across the sky. It's going to cross between 48 Leo and 49 Leo on June the 20th. It's moving away now from Regulus and away from 44 Leo. And it's still in that triangle of 44 Leo, 48 Leo, and 49 Leo until June the 20th. But now you don't have Regulus as a dominant star to be able to help you to visualize it. Plus, whenever the moon's out, then you have the light that's in the way. And so with this moon that we have, and so anyone that's going to rent time to see this thing should not do it until the moon is passed on by. And then we're going to be real late in the window to even see Elenin at all, because it's going to transition over into the daytime sky. So there's a small window here in July where that's possible, but in reality, I don't expect anyone to get us a good picture of it.
Okay, and you know, the other thing I heard is I was kind of curious about this because I didn't know if this was correct or not, but you know, there are a lot of people out there who say, well, no, it can't be a dwarf star, and they kind of tear down one reason, but you know, as you have in one of